Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're delving into a really unsettling story.
Mm-hmm. A true story, yeah.
Yeah, a real life case that, well, it sort of peels back that layer of normalcy.
And shows you what can be hiding right there in plain sight. Deception.
Exactly. And we're using some source material today, specifically excerpts from a podcast script that covered this exact case.
Right, so our job basically is to unpack the details from those sources.
Yeah, to understand how someone could appear so, ordinary.
While hiding something incredibly dark.
Yeah.
Just feet away.
Feet away. Okay, let's dive in. So the story really kicks off in a quiet suburb, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Uh-huh. And we have Eleanor Marsh. She's 59, a widow.
Right, and she owns her home and decides, okay, I'll rent out the basement apartment.
And according to the sources, she finds this tenant who honestly seems perfect on paper.
Perfect house.
Introduced himself as Daniel Graves. And Eleanor, she said he was polite, paid his rent right on time every time.
Like clockwork.
Exactly. And kept totally to himself. And crucially, she said he never made a sound.
Never made a sound. Okay. I can see why that would seem ideal for a landlord living upstairs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Eleanor didn't really pry. Why would she?
Right. He gave her basically zero reason to be suspicious. Everything seemed completely fine.
Until it wasn't. Until late September.
What happened then?
That's when a smell started. A bad smell, kind of seeping up from the basement apartment.
Okay, a smell. What did you think it was at first?
Well, her initial thought, the sources say, was maybe something outside. A dead animal near the house somewhere.
A raccoon or something under the deck. Yeah, that happens.
Right. But she checked around and pretty quickly determined, no, it wasn't coming from outside. And it wasn't from her part of the house. It was definitely originating from downstairs, from Daniel's apartment.
Okay, that's alarming. So what did she do? Try to contact him?
Naturally. She tried knocking on his door, sent him texts. Nothing. Just silence. No response at all.
Okay, so now you've got this terrible smell, and the tenant isn't responding.
Right, and rent was coming due pretty soon, but she realized she hadn't actually heard from him in, over a week.
Over a week, so the nervousness is definitely building.
Yeah, it's growing. And then the sources point out this one small detail that really becomes a turning point.
What was that?
Her neighbor, Mrs. Denning, just happened to mention, casually, that she hadn't seen Daniel around in weeks either.
Oh. Just a casual comment, but suddenly it adds a whole lot more weight.
Exactly. It sort of confirms Eleanor's growing unease. It pushes her to, investigate a bit more directly.
So she goes down to the basement apartment door.
She does. And that's when she finds something else that's weird.
What?
The door. It was locked, but locked from the inside.
Locked from the inside. Okay, that changes things. That means whoever went in last
was potentially still inside.
Right. Or
Or maybe they locked it and left some other way. Though that seems less likely for a basement apartment.
Right, so smell, no contact, door locked from inside.
That's when Eleanor knew something was seriously wrong. She called the police.
Makes sense. What did they find?
Well, the police arrived. They had to force the door open. And the discovery they made, it was beyond anything Eleanor could have possibly imagined.
Okay.
The man she knew is Daniel Graves. That wasn't his real name at all.
Who was he?
His fingerprints identified him as Kevin Lane. And Kevin Lane wasn't just using a fake name. He was a fugitive.
A fugitive? Wanted for what?
Wanted for a double homicide down in Georgia 5 years earlier.
Wow, so he'd been living right under her nose, undetected, using a stolen identity for potentially years.
Exactly, hiding in plain sight.
And the smell, what was the source of the smell?
That was the body. The body of a young woman named Sarah Quinn.
Oh no.
She was 27 years old. She'd been reported missing 2 months earlier.
And she was in the apartment.
Hidden away, in a crawl space inside the apartment, the sources say, wrapped in garbage bags.
Just horrific.
And it gets worse. The autopsy, according to the sources, revealed a really chilling detail.
What was that?
Sarah hadn't died right away when she disappeared. She had been held captive.
Captive? Where?
In that basement. For nearly 4 weeks before she died.
4 weeks, just feet below where Eleanor was living her normal life.
4 weeks. Unbelievable.
How did he even lure her there? How did Kevin Lane find Sarah Quinn?
The sources detail a really cold, calculated method. He used a fake job
A
advertisement.
job ad.
Yeah, posted on Craigslist,
Yeah.
offering cash payment for some kind of independent contract work in Cincinnati.
Oh, wow. So Sarah, she just replied to this ad thinking it was a legitimate job opportunity.
Seems so. She replied she arranged to meet him, and then she was never seen again.
God, it's terrifying how something so mundane, like looking for work online, could be twisted like that.
It really is. And
Right.
all while this was happening, while Sarah was presumably captive down there, Kevin Lane kept up this perfect facade.
The quiet tenant.
Exactly. Neighbors said they never heard anything suspicious. And Eleanor, living right upstairs, she told police she sometimes thought she maybe heard faint music, but nothing alarming, nothing to suggest that.
But it wasn't just luck, was it? He took steps to make sure she wouldn't hear.
Oh, definitely. The sources emphasize he went to extreme lengths. He apparently worked to soundproof the space down there.
Soundproof it. So he was deliberately trying to isolate her to prevent anything from being heard
It
upstairs.
seems that way. This wasn't just about being a quiet guy. It was an active effort to conceal what he was doing.
That's methodical.
And the police found more evidence of that planning. Disturbing evidence, according to the sources. Videos,
Journals become
and even, get this, a printed manifesto.
a manifesto. Wow. So these items, the sources suggest they showed this wasn't impulsive.
Not at all. They painted a picture of someone incredibly methodical, someone who would plan this all out, apparently even calculating how long he thought he could keep someone captive without attracting attention.
That level of calculation is deeply disturbing.
It really is. Calculated, prepared, and yet you step outside that basement apartment and Kevin Lane was just some guy.
That's the part that just stops you cold, isn't it? The sources mentioned, like grocery store cashiers remembered him.
Yeah, said he'd smile, make small talk. Nothing ever seemed off about him.
He just blended right in, completely invisible in plain sight.
Which, it circles back to that deeply unsettling question this whole case forces you to ask.
How well do you really know anyone? Your neighbors? The person living just downstairs?
Yeah. I mean, this story is such a stark example of someone presenting one face to the world.
Yeah. While this absolute horror is happening just a wall or a floor away. So what happened to Kevin Lane? Daniel Graves.
Well, he was caught, apprehended, tried, and the sources say he was sentenced just last year.
What was the sentence?
Life without parole.
And his reaction, did he show any remorse?
Absolutely none, according to the sources. His behavior during the trial was described as just as chilling as the crime itself.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a quote included in the source material, something he said to the court.
What did he say?
He apparently looked at them and said, "You all only found out because I let you."
Wow. Because I let you. That speaks volumes about his mindset, that control, that planning.
An absolute lack of remorse. It's chilling.
And Eleanor Marsh. What happened to her after all this, after the investigation finally wrapped up?
Understandably, she couldn't stay. The sources say she made the decision to move out of the house.
I can't blame her.
No. There's a quote from her in the sources too, and it's incredibly poignant. She said, "I can never go back to that place. I can't sleep in a home that held something so evil under my feet."
Under my feet, you can just feel the weight of that realization, the trauma of knowing what was happening unseen, unheard for weeks. Right there.
It completely destroys your sense of safety, your sanctuary, your own home.
Absolutely. It's hard to even imagine. So as we wrap up this deep dive, thinking about this story, this hidden life lived just a wall away, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it make you think about, all the things we don't see, all the things happening just out of view, and maybe the incredible effort some people put into keeping those secrets buried?